All right, you guys, welcome back to another episode of the Dental Marketing Secrets Podcast. So excited to have you back with us today. I've got another great episode for you, and one that I've been looking forward to for some time. I've got my buddy Weston Spencer, who's a cosmetic dentist down in La Jolla, California, and we're going to be talking about how he grew his practice from 500,000 to 2.5 million, everything that went into that. So that you can hopefully take away some of those same strategies and apply those to growing your practice. So Wes, thanks for joining us, man.
Absolutely, Mark. Thank you very much, man. So good to connect. We grew up 2 blocks away from each other, right?
I know. It's so fun to see kind of the progression of what's happened. You know how it is. You grow up and then you kind of take your own path and then you sit back and kind of see what happens. It's been fun. We reconnected. What was that? It was probably several years ago
A few years ago when you were starting to do the dental marketing game for a couple other companies, and was fun to reconnect. You probably don't know this. The thing I remember about the Thackerys is when I was a kid, you weren't there, but at the top of your street, we threw a water balloon down towards your older brother and his buddies. They were in high school. We threw a water balloon at them and their girls that they were hanging out with in their cars, and your brother was going to beat us up. I mean, literally. And we're like, dude, come on. Like, we're we know your little bro, we have your little brother. He was going to beat us up that day. I remember that so well about the Thackerys. That's like my most clear memory of the Thackery family, beat up by your brother.
Oh, that's a great example, really. No, and they talk about those stories all the time. I think it happens so much to them that they were, they just kind of internalized that, and then it just came out. So there were so many good spots in that neighborhood. I mean, to do that stuff, we would go down Holiday Boulevard and Shadowwood Circle, launch those over on the busy street, and so many good times.
Try not to tell my own kids the stuff I did as a kid.
Oh, no, I do, but it's always with the caveat that if we had grown up in this age and doing the same things, we'd be probably in prison. I mean, there's with all the cameras and all that stuff, we'd be hosed.
Absolutely.
So it's a good time to grow up. But so Wes and I have known each other for a long time, and so excited just to break this down, because it's been fun to see. Like I said, you've always been a very driven individual. Back when we were young, sports, you were a great athlete. But then to come take that same passion and focus into dentistry and see how you started just like everyone else starts, and then really scaled this up to a very successful practice. So I want to talk a little bit about that. So why don't you start kind of at the beginning and tell us a little bit about how you got into what it was like when you first got into dentistry, and then we can kind of move into that transition of how you grew the practice.
Yeah, well, let me first kind of describe like my upbringing in terms of dentistry, so you understand kind of where I came from and what I saw as dentistry. I got into dentistry because of my grandfather. He ran a small practice in Salt Lake City, 3 chairs, no hygiene, did everything himself from day one, and he practiced over 50 years.
Wow.
In fact, on the 50th, he retired at 50. Just over 50. On the last day, he saw the same patient that was his very, very first patient at the Cottonwood Mall.
Wow.
He first started his practice, and he saw that patient 50 years later. So really just
That's cool.
Traditional, good internal marketing, right? Like, he was known for being super gentle, super kind, would do anything for you. And that's what I grew up watching as far as dentistry. So I just saw small practice dentistry.
Yeah.
Right. I was used to kind of seeing that, and I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon, but he convinced me to come hang out in his office a couple of times, and I saw how he interacted with people, and that just like kind of lit a bit of a fire. It was like I wanted to be a surgeon to help people, and I was like, I could do it better in dentistry, I felt like, than I could in orthopedic surgery. And so that kind of sent me down the path there. Got into Loma Linda Dental School years later. Really felt like I could, once I got to clinic, I wanted to do as much dentistry as possible. So I really pushed myself. I tried to kind of market myself to the graduating doctors so that I could get a lot of their patients that they were going to hand over and do a lot of dentistry. So I did a ton of dentistry and got really somewhat proficient in dental school. I felt like graduated dental school, worked in Orange County, did part-time private practice with a CEREC doctor owner, a trainer who trained me really well on CEREC and had to run a good busy practice, had 8 ops. Dr. Peter Hagen, great dentist that I learned from. And also the other half of the week I was working for Pacific Dental Services, a group and I got my speed up with them, right? So the first 2 years of me being out of school were just kind of like observing, right? Trying to get better and quicker at the practice of working with an assistant so I could be a little bit more proficient. But also during that whole time, like my 4th year of dental school on, I really just got obsessed with cosmetic dentistry and making teeth look really, really good. I think that comes a little bit from my mom's side. My mom was an artist and attention to detail and very creative. And I think that I always wanted to be an artist, but I couldn't still to this day, I can't draw anything except for a tooth. I can draw a tooth really, really beautifully. Right. But so my passion for kind of the creativity behind cosmetic dentistry grew and started, and that's where I spent all of my time after dental school. So I put a lot of time early on and still do into learning how to do really good cosmetic dentistry, how to build the teeth in a proper position so that they work well and they don't break.
Right.
How to communicate with labs to get good results. All that stuff was like my focus getting out of dental school. So while I was just working as an associate, I was getting better and better at cosmetic dentistry with only limited opportunities as an associate, because you kind of just get what comes to you.
Right. Yeah.
And so you have to make it for you. It's not like I don't get a chance to market cosmetic dentistry as an associate outside of the practice. I just got to take what comes to me and make the most out of what come to me. And I would try to do that, and talk to patients and say, hey, let me show you what we can do, or try to do little things to help them to see that. But it wasn't until I took over my current practice about 2012, I walked into the office of this dentist here in La Jolla, California. I was working at another office, walked in because the endodontist had told me he was going to retire soon. And if he didn't find somebody, he was going to just walk away.
Wow.
So literally that after lunch with the endodontist, I walked into that guy's office that afternoon. The front office manager said I could go shake his hand. I went and shook his hand, asked him if I could take him to lunch, started doing emergency calls for him over the weekends and stuff. And then eventually he invited me to be an associate. So I associated for him for 2 years up till 2014. And then I bought the practice. And it was a small 4-op practice, 2 chairs to work out of, myself, and 2 hygiene chairs. And it was open about 3 to barely 4 days a week. I added an extra day back in. We kind of went from there. And that's where I say 2014 is where I took over, and it was, doing about 5 or so a year. At its peak, it had been doing about $1 million a year.
Yeah.
But over the years leading up to that, he had just kind of done less and less and less.
Right. Yeah.
And so that kind of took me to where, this journey in marketing really started for me, which is like, I was really, really afraid of doing external marketing or spending on it because I didn't know how to do it and I didn't know what worked. And I always felt like anything that I tried to do, this was back in 2014. So Yelp was a big deal, and Yelp wanted to spend money, right? You could do Google ads, but I had no clue how to do them well. And so really for me, marketing started by doing internal marketing. I had to grow the business from within first without overwhelming the patients.
Yeah. So question I had was, you mentioned early on, even when you were in school, you kind of had this idea to market to the older, market to the dentists, and try and capture some of their patients. So how long, it sounds like you've had this kind of a marketing mindset from the outset. You mentioned you were a little hesitant to engage with external marketing, but it seemed like you got the concept of marketing from an early start. Would you say that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that just came from, to be fair, I went on a 2-year LDS mission for our church, right? And I served in Tokyo, Japan. And I had to go out and put myself out there in front of people. I wasn't selling anything. I just wanted to talk about our church and talk about Jesus Christ. And I got told no 1,000 times a day for 2 years because Japan is not very Christian, right? So I think I grew a thick skin to the point where it's like, I'm going to try. I'm going to always try. And if somebody tells me no, it's not, they don't hate me, right? And I think that's kind of where that started. And then as I got into dental school, I just wasn't afraid to go up to the, older students and say, hey, I'm trying to do this and I want to learn from you, or you're doing awesome stuff here, and try to build them up a little bit, and then have them like me and say, hey, as you're graduating, if there's anything left over, let me take over for that.
Yeah.
Right. So that was just one little way of making myself busy in dental school. So
yeah, no, and that's a cool experience, and that's my wife Allie was actually just in Japan, just in Tokyo a couple days ago.
Yeah.
She loved it. It's her first time over there, and
the best. It's the greatest place, the nicest people in the world, but like I said, they're not very Christian and not very Christian.
Yeah.
So
okay, so you're talking about internal marketing, so you kind of had to focus and start there. So tell me, what were you doing? I mean, you'd seen what your grandpa had done, you'd seen kind of the care and all the attention to detail. What else did you do, in terms of how do we grow this?
Yeah. So first of all, the thing that the biggest piece of advice I always give doctors who are buying a practice is don't go in there and change anything right away. Right. Like, do what was done before in terms of the culture. Like, you have time.
Yeah.
You don't want to do it right away. The last thing you want to do when it comes to internal marketing is rock the boat and make a big change. Because sometimes people feel that change as an indication that things are going to cost more, or things are going to be different, or you're going to treat me differently. So I knew I would look in a mouth, and the doctor I took over for was the nicest gentleman on the planet, Dr. Jim Lovell. Still, I mean, I owe him the shirt on my back because he gave me the shirt on his back when it came to this practice and setting me up for success. And there was a lot of work to be done, though. And he told me that. He said, Wes, I'm going to let you take over this practice, and I know that there's a ton of dentistry to do. But if you come in and try to do it all in the first 6 months, everybody will be gone. Said, that's not my style. He's like, I'm conservative to a fault, and you need to understand that. And if you do it too much, people are going to leave. I said, I completely believe that. And like I said, I grew up watching my grandfather, so I was used to a little bit more old school, slower style dentistry. And so that was fine with me. And I would look in a mouth and I'd be like, well, hey, there's a lot to do here, but let's take the first priority and let's focus on just this thing, and let's make a long-term plan for some of these other things. But listen, the most important thing is I want you to know that I'm here for the long term, and we're going to take care of you in the long term. So yeah, there was stuff to do, but if it wasn't urgent, if it wasn't going to if the tooth wasn't going to break, if the tooth wasn't going to fall out of their head, we probably have a few months, or we probably have a year. And I think that's my advice to doctors initially, internally, is like, don't come in and rock the boat and say everybody needs 50, things to do, right? There will be 50 things to do, probably, especially if you're taking over for a retiring doctor.
Yeah.
Pace yourself. To me, I look at a mouthful of stuff to do and I'm like, wow, that's guaranteed dentistry for the next 2 to 3 years. Yeah. I'm going to be working for a while here. So let's take our time. The new patients will come, but I've got plenty of work to do here. So that was my first mindset, was take my time, be patient, treatment plan the most stuff. But I also came from a comprehensive treatment planning background with, like, Spear had taught me that. Yeah. And so I tried to make the plans unique and be able to handle, a quadrant at a time, as opposed to just one tooth at a time, which is what typically he was doing, but not overwhelm them and do all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of the basic bread and butter dentistry plan, was like, hey, take my time, start to schedule things out, schedule them out weeks at a time. So I'd be somewhat busy. But the other thing that was different that I took over for Jim was the fact that he wasn't doing any cosmetic dentistry. Right. Yeah. And if he was, he didn't try very hard, and he knew that. And the first day I actually worked in the practice, I remember somebody saying to me, hey, I want veneers. I know Dr. Lovell doesn't do veneers. Do you do veneers? And I was like, yeah, I do. So I was so stoked, right? Yeah. And so I developed, a pattern or a way of helping patients to maybe see the possibilities of doing cosmetic dentistry without any pressure or saying, or charging them up front or anything like that. And what eventually became what I call now a smile test drive,
Mm-hmm.
I have multiple versions of a smile test drive that I do for patients, but I kind of just developed that on my own, which was I would see a patient in the hygiene chair and they would point out something. Usually early on, I tried not to be too aggressive in terms of like, hey, what do you think about that dark spot around your front tooth? Oftentimes I'd say, hey, here's this thing. What do you think? And they just kind of let them talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And if they said, yeah, and also like I kind of noticed this chipping, the edges are chipping. I was like, hey, what if you gave me 1 hour on a different day to come back and kind of show you what I could do? In the meantime, as soon as you're done with this visit, let me take just a few photos. I'm gonna take like 5 or 6 photos of your teeth. And then I'm gonna take a quick impression. I didn't have a digital scanner, so I had to take a traditional impression of them right then. And then let me do some work. I'm going to do a little workup on you and see what it would look like if we fix some of these things, possibly with veneers. And then you come back and I'm going to try that in your mouth so you can try it out and see what it would look like. Would it be okay? And I'm not going to charge you for that. And everybody would always say yes.
No brainer. Yeah.
So the way I saw that is, okay, if I can pull them from hygiene and do traditional wax up. Now, here's the other little thing I did. I talked to my lab and I said, look, you and I both want to be a lot busier doing cosmetic dentistry. I want to do way more cosmetic dentistry than I'm doing. If you charge me $50 a tooth on this initial wax up, then I'm just trying to get them to be engaged. Then it's going to cost me on 8 teeth. That's going to cost me $400. And the patient hasn't even said yes yet.
Yeah.
But you want them to say yes. And I want them to say yes. So work with me on this initiative. If I do it this way, if I'm doing a smile test drive, do a wax up, make it good, but it doesn't have to be precise. We can touch it up later. Yeah. Give me a quick rendering of what we want to do. If you agree to it, can we do like 150, $200 on this wax up so that I'm not putting too much into it.
Right.
Haven't said yes yet. So he agreed to that. And what I noticed is that my case acceptance rate, so I would get that wax up back, right? I put temporary material in it, put it in their mouth based on the wax up, take it out or, clean it up a little bit. I'd take a few photos. And then what I did was I'd leave the room. I'd hand them the mirror. I'd leave them with my assistant and I walked out of the room because I went and took those photos. I had photos from before and photos now after with the smile test drive. And I went in my room, my office really quick, take me about 3 to 4 minutes. And I'd put side by sides of the before and afters. Right, I had about 3 like smiling up front, smiling on the side, and then a headshot. And I put those side by side on a quick slide, and then I brought it back in on the desktop with a laptop because again, like I took over an old practice, didn't even have a computer at the beginning.
You're right.
So I'm just bringing them up in front of them, and already they've had 3 to 4 minutes to just kind of simmer in their new smile, right? With the assistant being like, "Wow, look at that! That looks amazing." And I found my case acceptance went to about like, I don't know, 70, 80% of those patients are like, yeah, this is what I want. This is what I was thinking. So that's how I got patients to internally from my practice inside, start to agree to doing cosmetic dentistry. And it cost me money. Right. That's the point here. I was doing probably 4 or 5 of those a month. So you add up $200 at that, it's probably costing me $1,000 to $2,000 a month in lab bills on possible, smile test drives.
Right.
And I do the math on that with what I spend on external marketing now. That's still the best savings I ever had. I've spent way more than $2,000 on external marketing. My ad budget on Google AdWords is about 35 to 4, sometimes 5 a month. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. This was good internal market, taking patients who trust me and like me. And all I was doing was creating awareness of the problem and doing it on them internally and spending a couple $1,000 a month on it. And I was starting to do a lot more cosmetic cases because, and my fee at the time was $1,450, maybe $1,500, 6, 8, 10 teeth. Started to add up. Now I was doing, $15,000 cases. Yeah. And you start doing a few more of those a month, that adds to your baseline really, really good. And that's kind of how I started to grow internally as a cosmetic dentist.
Well, what I love about that, Wes, is that it's so intentional, right? I mean, you've got it's very strategic. You're just trying to get them to take that next step, because if you try and do that all at once, it's way too much. It's
Yeah.
just you're trying to get someone to marry you on the first date, so to speak. It's overwhelming. But what you did was so cool is that you're providing, and you're also providing like an outcome up front. You're providing that result
Yeah.
without any contingency. Like there's no obligation. They can just see it for
Yeah.
themselves. And if that's what they want, then and then I love too the aspect of, hey, I'm going to show them before and after the contrast, because that's what they need to see as well. They need to understand what it's like before, see what it looks like now, and even have something. I'm assuming too that you gave them some of those photos for after as well, so that they can go back, they can show other people, because it was just a temporary wax up. But yeah, I think that's what I love about it. So many people just try to hit it out of the park in one fell swoop, but you got to be hitting singles and doubles and getting around the bases, and then you can hit them home.
Well, so one point you made there. So let's talk about that. Like, therein lies the crux, I think, of case. There's a couple things in here that we can kind of dissect about case acceptance, because that's the crux. Like, you want to grow your practice, you have to have people say yes to your dentistry.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So in order to get them to say yes, to me, there is one very basic, simple formula. And it even goes back to like me talking about going from single tooth to quadrant dentistry.
Yeah.
If you were to have a graph, everybody likes an X and Y graph, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say on the X curve, and I'm hoping nerds are hanging in there with me. So on the X curve, or on the X line on the base, right, the horizontal line, we have trust level from 0 to 10, right? And on the Y axis, going vertically, you have awareness level, 0 to 10, okay? So to me, case acceptance exists when you're now in the far right, upper right-hand corner, right? Where you have a high level of trust and a high level of awareness working together. Patient's going to be like, oh, that makes sense. Right. You don't have to sell the dentistry now. It's not about selling. It's about breaking it down to, does this patient trust me? And have I built up the awareness of the problem good enough for them to see a solution, and then for them to envision the solution in their mind, so that they're saying to you, yeah, like, what are we going to do about that? Okay, yeah, that solution makes sense, right? Right. So when those two things are working in harmony, trust and awareness, then you're going to have a high case acceptance rate. So think of it just a cracked tooth, right? Like, you've got an amalgam with a crack on the tooth. You're a brand new dentist who just walked into the practice and took over this practice. Mm-hmm. How do you create trust? Well, if this is the first time you're ever meeting them, do they trust you? If they don't know anything about you, do they trust you? Probably not. So if you come in too heavy and strong, they're going to trust you less, right? Mm-hmm. What can you do to build up that trust? Well, sometimes it takes time. Yeah. And so if they're not having symptoms on that tooth, if they're not, it's not going to break tomorrow, but you definitely see the crack. And from history, I've been doing dentistry for a long time, that tooth is going to crack at some point. But should I do it today? Does it need to be done tomorrow? Like, having that attitude of like, well, let me build a little trust. And that's what I did in the beginning. Is like, hey, let me show you. Instead of building the trust part, I'm going to build the awareness today. I'm going to show you a picture of this tooth. Let me show you what happens, and say, hey, most commonly in my experience, somebody bites down on a nut. That's the most common reason that somebody comes in with a broken tooth, is it's usually around these areas here. I see it. I know you're not having sensitivity today, but when I see you in 6 months and you come back for this visit, I'm going to take a picture again, and we're going to compare it. Is that okay? So that hey, I'm well aware of this, and I don't want you to be. And if something happens between now and then, at least you knew I told you about it. Yeah. But hopefully that gives you a little chance to kind of see. And I just want you to know, hey, I don't want to rush you on this, but it's something we need to do and should do, right? So that was more my approach early on, right? Yeah. Because you had to build the trust, but I tried to build the awareness. So now if you fast forward to my patients that have been with me for a little bit of time, a year or two, I'm starting to do these cosmetic consults, smile test drives. I had built the trust with them. They've been coming to me for a couple of years, and they trusted me that I wasn't going to be overwhelming. But how could I build so the trust was there, but the awareness was not? So the Smile test drive allowed me to create the awareness of what was possible,
Right.
what it looked like now, what it could look like in the future. And so that's where I started getting that high case acceptance rate, is once the trust and the awareness was there together, now you're getting a higher case acceptance rate. And I would say we can kind of take it down this road, but now when you talk about external marketing, right? Can you build trust with a patient so that by the time they get in your chair, they have the trust?
Right.
Now I just need to do the awareness part, which now I do a Smile test drive the same day. I do it in 1 hour. I put flowable over their teeth to show them what it's going to look like right away. It doesn't cost me anything. It just costs me my time.
Yeah.
Right. But now I have an eager, willing patient that trusts me in the chair. I just need to build up awareness, and then that's how I get a higher case acceptance rate. Right.
Yeah.
So that's the formula to me. That's what I hope patients, if there's one big takeaway, I think, from today, is that trust awareness graph that you, if you're sitting there about to diagnose, 5 crowns in a patient's mouth, have a quick moment. You're sitting in the hygiene chair and you're thinking to yourself, do I have a lot of trust? Does this patient trust me? And if you get the feeling that they don't trust you very much yet, the likelihood they say yes to your treatment is probably not very high.
Yeah. Or if you even have to guess, like if you're not sure if they trust you, then that's probably an indication that there's not a lot of trust there yet.
Right. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So do something to build that. What could you do to build a little bit more trust right now, knowing that, okay, some dentistry needs to be done, but build a little trust with them first. You probably made them aware of it by showing them pictures and talking about it there. But that goes to your other point about what you just said about dentists. I think we are the worst at like shooting ourselves in the foot because we talk too dang much. Right? We're like that guy on a first date that hasn't been on a date for like 2 years.
Yeah.
Like, hey, how's the date going? Okay. Well, no, I mean, really, like, how do you feel about our date? Is it going well so far? At the end of the day, it's like, so I really, really, really want to meet you tomorrow. Can we get together tomorrow for breakfast? Well, we just met, like we just had lunch. I know, but I felt like it went really, really well.
Yeah.
That you and I could meet together for breakfast tomorrow and keep this conversation going.
Yeah.
But that's how we act sometimes. Right?
That's so true. Yeah.
And so build awareness. If you can build awareness without talking, that's the sweet spot, I think, for internal marketing. Right.
Yeah. But yeah, what's so neat about marketing in general is that you can start to build some of that awareness of trust in advance, through some of the way that you communicate, how you articulate their problems. Because if you go to someone and you've never met them before, but they can clearly articulate exactly how you feel and your symptoms, there's that trust that is established right just like that, in a heartbeat, because they're like, holy cow, this guy, it feels like he knows exactly what's going on in my head, and so those are some of the things that you can do from a marketing standpoint to start establishing that trust. But I love what you did, Wes, too. There's so many ways to do this in a very no risk or very low risk way, so that there's not much pressure involved, because I think that's one of the things that really hogties a lot of these patients, is that they don't want to be sold to, even though they desperately need the solution. None of us really like to be pitched to, even though we like to buy stuff, and so marketing can help bridge that gap, where you can educate them, you can provide them with the awareness piece, where you're helping them understand what their options are, but you're also positioning yourself as an expert by articulating what they're feeling and how, what they're trying to accomplish. And that's what's so neat about that. And then you can build in these, kind of bake into the system some of these no risk, low risk ways. Love this. The Smile test drive is a great example. I remember when I was out of college, I started a photography company, and I realized that once, there was a few strategic steps in that process. Once I got to that step, I was golden. Like my conversion rate was about 90%. So I just had to get them to that step. I didn't have to do anything else really. And so I'd have to get them to a point where they could just sit down and meet with me or talk with me. And then it was a done deal. So once you outline that process, it makes it so much easier. And then you're not trying to jump from A to Z. You're trying to jump from A to B and B to C and C to D. And it's so much less pressure on the patient to do that. So I love that. Love that example with the test drive. Anything else as far as when you started to go out into external marketing, what are some of those things that you look back on and feel like, hey, this was one of those moments that I feel like this really helped grow my practice, or it was a defining moment for me?
Yeah, so I would say that the thing that made the biggest difference, where I saw the biggest jump. So I started doing a lot of these smile test drives in the office on my existing patients, right? And then I'd get a couple of like referrals from their friends, right? So I started getting patients externally that were seeing their friends do these, beautiful teeth, and they wanted to do that too. So that was starting to work for me, getting a little bit of momentum there, right? And then something happened that completely changed the trajectory of my practice, and where it really just like doubled practically. And that was when I started to use Smile Virtual Consult. That was probably the biggest game changer for me, because I wanted to externally market, and I was like, hey, I feel like I'm a good enough cosmetic dentist to put my stuff out there.
Yeah.
I'm really, really proud of it. And I would stand behind it and put it up against anybody else in town saying, hey, look, if you're going to get veneers, you might as well come and do it with me. Right. And I needed to get it out there, but I didn't know how to track it really well. I didn't know where to spend on AdWords very good. I just wasn't very good at that. And so around the same time that I was about to start doing some Google AdWords stuff is when I connected with Dr. Brian Harris. And this was the early days of Smile Virtual Consult, where he was just barely starting to send out virtual consults to potential cosmetic patients. And we weren't doing it through his current platform, like with a nice recorded video inside the platform. We were sending Loom videos, LOOM, right? So, which everybody's starting to use now, but we were using this in 2017, 2018, where we would, get a patient that was interested, and we would just ask, like, so from an external marketing situation, we would ask them to either go to our website or connect with us, text message, direct message on Instagram, and say, hey, send me 2 photos of, send me a face photo smiling and then an up close of your smile. Tell me what you want fixed. I'll send you a personalized video consult. And then we were recording a video consult with some slides showing like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. Let me go over a little bit of what I see in your smile. And then let me show you some examples of things that I've done recently that are just like yours. And at the end of that virtual consult, I would say, I think you need this many veneers, or I think you need this Invisalign, I think you need these implants. This is how many appointments it's going to take, and this is what that's like, and this is exactly how much it's going to cost. And I would do that. And it would take me, the first time I did a virtual consult, it took me 12 minutes, because what do dentists do? They like to talk a lot.
Yeah.
Right. So my virtual consult was forever, and I pared it down to a 5-minute. I can get everything done 5 minutes or less, send it out to the patients. And then guess what? The patients that showed up in my chair after doing the virtual consult, you know what the close rate on those patients was?
Got to be super high. Yeah.
So sneaking high, because they knew it wasn't different, and they got a personalized video from me. So they already kind of knew me and my personality. They clicked on the link because they saw my good work. And then now that I was willing to upfront tell them how long it was going to take and how much it was going to cost, if they showed up in my chair, they already knew veneers cost.
Totally
we
transparent.
Didn't have to be worried about that. And you know how comfortable it is to go into a new patient exam with somebody who is interested in getting veneers or getting, reconstructive work or getting implants or Invisalign, knowing that they already know the price of what you're going to talk about.
Yeah, no secrets.
There's no secrets. You've already gotten over all those barriers. Now it's just like the very first question I walk in when I do after doing a virtual consult for a patient, I'm like, hey, we're doing this. This is so great. So good to have you. Awesome. We're doing this. And then I sit down and I look at my face. So tell me, like, why now? What is it about right now that you wanted to take this step? And when we start on that path, as opposed to, what you're used to getting in, okay, so tell me, what you're concerned about. Oh, I have this chip in a tooth. Okay, let me tell you how I can fix this with this and da-da-da.
Yeah.
It's a totally different experience, right? And so the trust is already there. The awareness is already there. It's just a matter of like putting the pieces together, finding the right time. Sometimes it's the right financing, sometimes whatever it is those missing pieces are. But if they show up in your chair after doing a virtual consult, total game changer. And so that's where, now all of my external marketing is directed towards that virtual consult. Because I know that the more virtual consults I get, the more of those I close towards getting them to come. Now, a virtual consult, I don't close them on the dentistry. I just close them on coming in to do a smile test drive in my office.
Right.
So a percentage of those will come into my office, and then a percentage of those will do dentistry, right? So if I funnel them, if I had a marketing funnel, right, where you talk about like taking patients from everywhere with a good call to action, driving them into one spot, that spot is my virtual consult page, and getting them to do virtual consults with me, and then that leads to that.
So question on this though. Yeah, let me ask you two things. So as a, I'm sure there's dentists out there that are like, well, that seems like a lot of time. So how do you, I'm just playing devil's advocate, I mean, I don't know if I want to start doing, carving out 15, 20 minutes, even though you've pared it down to 5 now, but that seems like a lot of time. Why should I do that? So how would you address that?
First of all, yeah, it did in the beginning because we also didn't know how to do it really well. So we were just learning. Like I was one of probably 5 or 8 beta testers with Brian trying to figure out how to make this process better. So now that there's a nice software that does it all for you, I get an email that comes to me directly. I look at it, it says, you have a new lead. It's my favorite email of the day, right? Yeah. Oh, cool. I click on that. I go in there, their picture, their information, their phone number, their email, and their reason why they're seeking dentistry is all right in front of me. Yeah. Right. I've already, you learn how to, with anything, there's a learning curve. You learn how to build these slide deck, right, so that you have them ready. So I just go in, I'm like, well, that person has a gap in his teeth and some asymmetry. I think he's going to need 8 veneers. So I'm going to go do a couple other cases that I already have pictures of that have gaps with 8 veneers. And I click on 1, 2, 3, a couple other intro slides, type in how much it costs. I mean, that process takes me 35 seconds to do. Yeah. And then I often don't have the time right then. So maybe I go see a couple of patients, but in between patients, I'll come sit down, get a nice little background behind me, hit record, do the video in 5 minutes, hit send. I'm done. I mean, that is the total commitment to doing a virtual consult. Now, was it like that in the beginning? Absolutely not. It took time to do that, but everything that, just like anything, every process, you have to do the work. So don't be afraid of it. If you're afraid of the work, then you know what I mean? I can't help you anyway, right? Like people are afraid of putting in the work on the front end for something that's going to be rewarding on the back end. That's just is what it is, Right. So you just got to decide, is that what your passion is? Do you want to do more cosmetic dentistry / reconstructive dentistry? Well, that's the path that I believe is probably the fastest, easiest way to get more leads coming into you, and then more yeses when they're in front of you. So the other question is, Wes, for those that are hesitant to share pricing just out of the gate, how would you respond to them? You're not getting as many yeses as you want anyway. So what is holding you back? Right? If we're having a conversation, believe me, we all want more yeses. Yeah. We all want more yeses. I want more yeses because I know what my conversion rates are. So if I can just drive more patients into my funnel numbers, I know what my conversion rate are right? So that's where I spend more of my time. But when it comes to pricing, it's a value to expectation algorithm. You're talking about doing nice dentistry. Do people want to go to somebody that is cheap when it comes to getting nice dentistry? Most of the time, not. Now, are there people who go to Mexico in my neighborhood so they can get it cheaper? And do they come back and they show me after and we talk about why it's not very great? Yeah. But putting your fee out there, if your fee is what your fee is, they're going to find out about your fee, right, one time or another. So if the person is afraid of your fee anyway, how much time do you want to spend trying to convince that person who's afraid of your fee to spend your fee? I say spend 0 amount of time and spend your time working with the people who understand the value of your dentistry. So don't be afraid to put your fee out there, right? Like, to me, putting your fee out there is not the barrier to saying yes, right? That does not cause people to not pick up the phone and call you. Them trusting you and understanding how passionate you are about what you're doing, the confidence that you have in your fee, that is why people say yes to your dentistry. It has nothing to do with your fee. Yeah. No, I agree 100%.
100% there. You're just saving yourself so much time too. You know, you might as well get it out there in the upfront, and then they'll kind of deal with it. And then, like you said, those people that decide to come in for the test drive, they've already come, they already know that, you know, I mean, it's so much easier. You're already on that slippery slope where it's just easier and easier for them to say yes. Awesome. So we've seen you kind of grow from this. You've kind of 5x your practice basically, you know, and once you get to, when I see a lot of doctors talking to them when they get to this level, some of them just kind of fizzle out, you know, I mean, they just get bored, they get complacent. But I haven't seen that with you. What is, how come, like, why do you feel like you're still just as excited where you are now? When you look to the future, what's kind of next for you right now, Wes?
Yeah. So I mean, part of it is I just love things growing, you know, I love to grow something. And I definitely feel like, you know, we have 8 solid hygiene days in our practice right now. We're a fee-for-service practice, right? We get paid for what we do. I don't have any contracts. So last year we dropped Delta Dental. Really, really proud to just kind of be at this point. People are choosing us because they want to come to us, right? That's a fun spot to be at in dentistry. But I'm still doing a lot of it myself. Like I have an associate that comes here 1, sometimes 2 days a week. Definitely the future involves having somebody that wants to be, you know, a partner in this practice, take on some of that, you know, burden of running the specific business itself. But the most thing I'm probably excited about, because I think that a lot of people, once they kind of get into that, you know, 1.5, 2, 3, even $4 million range on their practice, you start to get to that point where you realize there's very few people very few other dentists who are going to be able to come in and buy your practice from you at that high of a level, right? Like it's hard to get the funding for that.
Yeah.
You got to have the right person with the right personality, with the right funding. All that stuff has to line up. And so I feel like that's where you're seeing a lot of people go and look at joining groups, right? Groups are massive, massive, massive influence right now in dentistry. I see so many of my colleagues, even a lot of them my age, you know, joining groups. That's a big part of where we saw kind of things going. Even a few years ago, we started to see this wave of DSO group joining. And part of it because like, hey, a DSO is going to give you such a huge value for your practice right now. The problem I saw with a DSO, traditional DSO model of selling your practice now, a couple of things. One, well, the benefit, you get a high valuation, right? You probably never get that high of a valuation. However, you're getting paid a lot of that right now. And I'm 42. I don't want to take a big chunk of money right now and not have ownership of my practice for the next 3-5 years. If I'm giving away the majority ownership of my practice now, that scares me a little bit. I'm afraid of being a W-2 employee in the state of California. Nothing scares me more. Like it's the worst. Like watching a high 40% of your money go away. Before you ever even touch it. Oh, it just kills me. And so losing the ability to be able to, you know, do your business taxes and having an S corporation and being able to do that pass-through entity and what I can and can't run on my business. I mean, I would hate to lose that. And then ultimately clinical autonomy, right? Everything that I just told you about, what made me successful, I'm sure I could sell to a DSO, a big DSO, and have them tell me, oh, you don't have to change any of that. But if they'd own the majority of my practice, I don't know what business exists in capitalism where the majority owner doesn't have kind of final say or the ability to kind of creep in and say, hey, we should really be doing it this way. We need to do it this DSO way, right? And so that's where, like, you know, a couple of colleagues of mine, we went to dental school, Landon Libby, Nick Morangio, 2 of the best private practice dentist owners that I've ever met, guys who way more than 5x their own practices. I mean, way beyond that. And we got together kind of a mastermind 2018 and put our heads together and said, here's the wave of what groups are doing. Why can't you preserve the private practice experience, especially those 3 things I just described? You know, how you run your business, the clinical autonomy, the value, and all that stuff. Why can't you get all of that of private practice and be part of a group at the same time? And what was born out of that was Saving Private Practice, SPP Dental Partners, right? Where you will find that our chief model or chief mode of creating a deal structure as far as a group goes and joining our group is that we do a minority partnership in dental practices, right? We are not coming after the majority of your practice. You still own the majority of your practice. There's a minority cash flow share, of what's left after the business has been paid, including the doctor. And what that creates is a scalable group that participates in the same, 5x, 8x, 10x, 12x, and beyond multiplier effect of having a group while you still being able to maintain your autonomy. We don't buy out your corporation. None of that stuff changes hands, right? It's really just due to the relationship that we have through an MSA, which is what every group has. So that's what I'm most excited about personally, is growing that, right? Helping other people to see that you can be a really, really, really great private practice dentistry owner. You can see the wave of group partnerships like challenging that and say, I can be a part of that without losing all the benefits that I love of being a private practice owner. That's ultimately what we've created and what I'm probably most excited about, right? Because I get up in the morning getting excited about growing things. I like being in front of people. I like being able to share what I'm excited about. That's what makes my internal marketing work pretty good in my own practice. What makes my external marketing, turns the keys on that. But then what really gets me excited is seeing other dentists kind of see that same vision of like, well, hey, we can compete with DSOs while maintaining all the beauty of private practice. And that's what we've created in SPP.
I love it. I love it, man. Yeah, we'll have to talk a little bit more about that, because I know a lot of people, I get a lot of questions about that too from dentists that are considering joining a group. They see the trade-offs, they see the benefits. Like you said, there's so much more value there, but they also see some of the support, maybe taking some things off their shoulders and having someone else handle that. But they're just so leery because they've seen so many of their friends that are, in the industry that have gone and they just aren't, it's not the same, once you've kind of turned over, for most people, it's not the same, at least in my experience. So we'll have to do another episode on that, because I think there's a lot of people that are curious about that. Plus I'd love to dive into, this topic of where private practice, how does that compete against the dental group marketing from a marketing standpoint? A lot of people feel like, I'm just David and Goliath, it's way too overwhelming. And while there's certainly advantages to the DSOs have, I think there's also some very unique weapons that private practice has that DSOs will never have. So
absolutely, let's
talk about that another time. But yeah, Wes, so for those people that would like to get in touch with you, learn more about your practice or SPP, what's the best way to do that?
The first I always say is just Instagram. Honestly, like I'm usually checking it pretty often. I cultivate my Instagram account very well because that's a massive part of my external marketing, right?
Yeah.
So if you follow me and want to direct message me on there, it's at Dr. Weston Spencer, at Dr. Weston Spencer. You can connect with me there. I am open book. Someone asks me questions, they want to talk offline, happy to do it. They can connect with me there. They can talk with me about SPP there. They can follow SPP Dental Partners on Instagram, or sppdental.com. That's sppdental.com is a great resource for kind of who we are, what we do, a lot of testimonials, a lot of information on that side as to what makes our group different than all the other groups that you're seeing out there. So
cool. Sweet, man. I'll make sure that's linked up in the show notes as well. But thanks again, Wes. Yeah, I appreciate you jumping on here, man. It's always good to talk with you.
Absolutely, Mark. Thanks, buddy. Have a great day.